How's it going, guys? If you guys haven't seen the Twitter announcement, we are getting chapter 13. Let's go. I've been waiting for this for so long because, well, it's chapter 13. And to be honest, I'm really only be waiting for the story for Arknights. Like, that's basically what I enjoy the most now. It's just reading the story and then IS, basically. So good to see we're getting more main stories. So, as usual, since we are having a new banner, it's time for a Shuju pool. And this time around, it's going to be fairly simplistic, except there is a minor subset of you that might be a bit different. So, let's go to our conclusion first, and that is, should you pull this banner for Hoederer or not? The answer for that is no. At least for the majority of you, I reckon that you should not pull for Hoederer at all. So, like I said, there is going to be a small subset, but we'll have to go into the details of why that, of the whole operator, and then I can explain why that is. So first of all, let's take a look at Hoederer. So Hoederer is a Crusher class operator. So many of you might not be familiar, but we've had a 5-star that is Wind Chime, and then 4-star would be Quartz. So this type of operator is probably relatively new for most people, and a lot of you probably have never experienced this archetype at all. So I'll just explain basically what the whole archetype does. So they have a very high HP, a very high attack. They have 0 defense, 0 resistance. They block 2, hit 2, and have a 2.5 second attack interval. So the damage per second here, if just basically looking at the stats, is around 700 damage per second. So you can kind of see that similar to Gavial Altar. They basically have the same attack per second if you're only looking at the raw stats, except that Gavial Altar and Blaze has block 3, hit 3. Hoederer only has block 2, hit 3. And Hoederer has just no defense while they have defense. So, what differs Hoederer than all the other Crushers then? So, first of all, his first talent is really powerful in my opinion. So, his first talent is just as simple as when he's attacking enemy, attack is increased to 110%. It's just outright simple, strong talent. And then if the enemy is stunned or bind, that increases to 140%. That's if you can make sure you can you can always have the enemy stun or bind when Hoederer is attacking. That's just extra damage. So this is actually a very powerful talent, unless the enemy has resistance, which a lot of bosses, have stun and bind resistance recently. So that's kind of a starting point to see why he kind of starts to fall off. But there is more. There is his second talent. His second talent is that Hoederer and the operator directly behind him will gain 18% sanctuary. So 18% physical and arts damage reduction. That goes to 21% at P5. So if you guys don't know what sanctuary does, is basically you do all the calculations. So damage reduction after defense, and then or resistance, and then that damage is then multiplied by 0.82 in this situation, because it's 18% damage reduction. So as you can see, Hoederer actually works really well against arts damage enemies, because most ground operators don't have 18 resistance to begin with. So that makes him actually really great at tanking those enemies in that sense. And yeah, his high HP definitely helps. Now, let's take a look at his skills. So his skill 1 is a very simplistic skill. So attack to recover SP. At M3, that's 2 SP. So that's 2 hit and then 1 skill. So 5 seconds to charge up 1 skill, and then another 2.5 seconds to deal the damage. So 7.5 seconds each skill. The skill effect is that at M3, the next attack deals equivalent physical damage equivalent to 260% of his attack, and recover 25% of its own HP, which recovers roughly 1600 HP every 7.5 seconds. It might look good on paper, But if you just think of a lot of enemies that are physical damage and just fast hitting, that has way higher DPS than that, you can tell that that HP recovery really isn't going to do anything. So if you want to use him as like your solo lane holder, like your mountain, he ain't gonna do it. You gotta have a medic on him. That's a must. So I would say most people just really shouldn't bother M3ing this skill, to be honest. Like, I don't. If you want to do AFK strats, just go with your mountain, go with your blaze, thorns, and mud rock. All those good operators out there. Don't try using him because he ain't gonna do it. Now, his skill 2 is actually a lot more interesting. So this is one of those skills where you switch between different forms. So think of mountain skill 2. So where if you activate the skill, so if he switches into the form, he will have plus up to 40% attack, and his attack interval will increase by 0.5 seconds. That makes it 3-second attack interval. His block count plus 1, so he can now block 3, hit 3, and his attack will stun the enemy for 1 second. So basically, you remove all the HP, like the self-healing part, and then just let him stun to make that the survivability, quote unquote. It ain't really gonna work, but this is a skill that you probably want to work on if you're going for a specific content. We'll also talk about that later, but like most of the time you just really wouldn't bother M3ing this skill anyway, because if you're really just after the stun and the stun duration doesn't really increase, if you M3 this, you're just getting a bit more attack and you're getting less SP cost, which makes the skill just activate from 8 seconds to 5 seconds. Not really that big of a deal if you're only after the stun. So if you do want to use his skill 2, you end up on him and you do want to use his skill 2, you still wouldn't bother M3ing unless you know that you specifically need the 5-second activation time. Now, skill 3. This is the only skill I M3'd because this is his main damage skill, and I wanted to see what potential he can do. As you can see, this skill lasts for 70 seconds. Within the skill duration, he will lose 100 HP per second. He will let enemies who he has attacked or has attacked him lose 200 true damage HP per second. So take 200 true damage per second. It's fine for 70 seconds. That's like 14,000 HP if you're looking at that. So that's good, if you can say so. His attack range will increase by 1. His max HP will increase by 60%. His attack will increase by 120%. And every time he attacks, he will recover 5% of his HP, which roughly translates to about 200-ish HP regen per second. But you also have to minus the 100, so it's more like 100-ish per second, which isn't really that good. And there's a 25% chance to stun the target for 5 seconds. Which, 25% chance. My Ethan at 70% chance doesn't even bind that well. 25% chance. You know how it is. So, basically, you see a lot of stats here, right? But I'll translate it to a more straightforward number for you guys. Basically, he deals 140,000 damage within 70 seconds. So that's a DPS of roughly 2,000. With his own stun, like 25% chance. I'm like getting a rough estimate of like a estimated value here. Obviously, if you can stun all the way, it increases a lot more, but you'll have to use other operators to cover up the stun because you're not really expecting him to stun every single time throughout, or like enough times throughout the entire 70-second duration. I don't think anyone's really expecting that. So 2,000 DPS is really, really, really slow. And you remember how I mentioned that he roughly recovers, like if he has enemy within his reach the whole duration, he roughly recovers 100-ish HP per second. I'll tell you one thing, Ansel can heal more than that per second. That's the rough idea of how much healing that is. And because he does have zero defense, any enemy with like fast attack speed, you guys know like those like early game dogs, those have like low attack, really, really low attack. Like you can fend them off with like a fang or something, right? But no, because they attack so fast, Hoederer would just get eaten up by them because he has no defense whatsoever. That is how horrible having no defense is. And the mere 100 HP per second regen, it does nothing. And second of all, remember how like this skill takes 70 seconds to deal 140k damage? Well, first of all, because if you really only want to use him alone, like no medics on him, so just him alone just dealing damage, you need 70 seconds to deal that much damage. Well, if you look at Minar, 28 seconds over 100k damage and hit 6 targets or something. So much better. And like most operators out there have better DPS than him, like those operators that we typically use. So his damage output is really not that good, even at skill 3 M3 E290, all that good stuff. It's not that good. So essentially it boils down to, when would you really use him? Is there actually a place where he is good? Yes, actually. If you're only facing a very few amount of elite enemies or boss enemies that specifically only deals arch damage and does not have stun resistance, then sure, Hoederer plus a medic is probably a good stun, like a good damage operator plus like tanking operator for them. But you already have other operators like Zarya to do the arch damage tanking, and then you already have other good operators to deal damage. So you really wouldn't use Hoederer in most situations. Now, that's mainly focusing on like if you're just trying to do story like your EX8s and whatnot, like if you're just trying to get the story done, trying to get the stages done, and you just want to get the rewards. There is also other content. So from my perspective, I'm a huge fan of IS. Would I use him? Sometimes. So let's say if I get like a lot of collectibles that has like increased crowd like stun duration collectibles, sure, I can use him because his skill 2 does give like quite good stuns if you have like increased stun duration, right? Except there's a little problem, is that in those situations I would really just go for Gnosis a lot of the times, because Gnosis also gives fragile with his freeze, and so that also buffs my other like high DPS operators instead of just using Hoederer, who doesn't even give me any damage buff. He's just doing like so little damage anyway. So that kind of makes him sort of pointless in my opinion. Now, the final piece of content that I would have to mention is CC. As many of you know, I'm not a huge fan of CC. I don't really play a lot of CC, especially like at the highest risk. I sometimes do it if I find that specific CC interesting, but most of the time I just couldn't be bothered. But if you're a fan of CC and you actually know about your CC stuff, you can see how good of a skill 2 is. Because there's a lot of hard-hitting enemies that say, do you guys remember one of the old CCs where there's like the golem? Those golems can be perfectly countered by Hoederer if there was only 3 of them, because there was 4 in which he only blocks 3, so he can't really like perma stall all of them. But if there's only 3 of them, then Hoederer is a good operator to just perma stall all of them at that point. So potentially in the future, where CN hasn't seen a single CC where you would use Hoederer yet, but maybe like huge huffing copium, one day for sure, there will be a CC where you would need Hoederer. Then perhaps you would want to use him. But there's more. In that situation, you gotta also ask, do you not have a friend who is just like me, who's just gonna pull every single operator anyway? If you don't have a friend that does that and who just will happen to have Hoederer anyway, then you can just borrow their operator. If you don't have a friend like that, then finally, CC, high-end CC, like highest risk CC, plus don't have a good friend that has like all the operators. In that case, sure, you can pull Hoederer. Everyone else, skip this banner. That's how simple this banner is, and I hope you guys can understand why there's just no reason why you should pull this banner whatsoever, unless you're after the 5-star and you know, the waifus, then in that case I really can't stop you, and I would only bless that you don't get Hoederer, and then you can save up your pity for the next banner. That's it for this video, and please give it a thumbs up if you find this video helpful. Share with me your plan of all the items that you can save from skipping this banner. What's your plan? Who do you want to pull in the future? And I love to discuss that with you guys down in the comment section. And I'll see you guys in the next one, in which I will be pulling him, because, you know, I always just do. Remember, do as I say, not as I do. Don't do what I do and just pull every operator, even though they're not really that good. That's just what I set myself up to when I said that I wanted to get every single operator in EN when I started playing. That's just me. Alrighty, I'll see you guys then. Bye.